Welcome everyone to Overcome Podcast, episode 58. And today we have an amazing episode for you with Welsh track and field heptathletes and medical students. In the 2021 Combined Events Challenge, she was the Welsh Senior Champion, and in the same year, she also finished fourth in the European Combined Events Cup and the English Combined Events Championships. With that amazing resume, I'd like to welcome Laurey Davey.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Laurie, thank you for being on today. And you've been competing for a long time. I was just looking to the details about your resume that you sent and did some research also. And you won many national titles starting at 12. So
Yeah.
at that time, kids wants to play and have fun. So you were playing, having fun, competing, right?
Yeah, well, that was my fun. So I was good at sport in school, and that's what I enjoyed. And luckily, I just went into competing and was just naturally good at it, and I just stuck at it, really.
So it's funny because you always have this competitive aspect on you, or it was more like your parents or in coach that were pushing you to do it.
I wouldn't actually even say I'm competitive. It's more that I strive to reach like my own potential.
Mm.
I've never been competitive in the sense of comparing myself to others around me. I've never gone into a race being like, I've got to win this. And that actually I've sort of identified it could potentially be a weakness I might have to change. But I was never pushed into it. My parents were always supportive, but they allowed me to do anything I wanted to do. I just loved sport, and that's just the thing that kept me happy and still keeps me happy to this day.
This is quite amazing because that this mindset of oh, I'm not really competitive, I'm just trying to be my best. You look at things in a different perspective, right? Because even
Yeah.
probably even when you lose, you're not like disappointed that you lost. You may be disappointed with your own numbers, right?
Yeah, that's it. And like I said, I might try and change to become a little bit more competitive because you'll find I am maybe too laid back sometimes because I have quite a wider perspective on competition. You know, I go into a race and I think this is just a race and it's a part of where I want to go. It's part of my journey, but the result today doesn't matter. Um, which is true, but I do want to I want a little bit of a more competitive edge so I can take a race more seriously in the future.
When you say taking seriously, you do take serious because you compete consistently, and I'm pretty sure that you like the feeling of winning. So you do take serious, but you don't take the loss that seriously, right? It's not it doesn't affect you that much.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, and so every time that you go to a competition, you probably don't even get nervous, do you?
No, I don't really, like to be honest. I just really enjoy it and like I can't wait to be there. And I think obviously everyone's different on a competition scale, but I'm very talkative and giggly and some people say, oh my gosh, like surely that's not what works, but it's what works for me.
Interesting. That's amazing. You probably have a lot of friends that are in the opposite side of this spectrum and they are extremely nervous to perform. And how do
hmm
you help them to get better?
Yeah, so I do find that my presence helps because, you know, having that person who's sat there smiling and giggling and reminding you that it's just a race or it's just sport. And at the end of the day, the result isn't going to affect your life or, you know, doesn't change your value, then it does help. But I definitely can be annoying to some of them sometimes because some of them are so competitive and I'll find sometimes at the start of the race and the gun's just about to go off, you know, the girls are slapping their legs and they're screaming and they're really focused. And I'm sat there like looking around like, oh gosh.
Am I
But yeah, I
supposed to
definitely
do
can
that too?
sometimes. Yeah, I should be trying to do that.
So do you think that because I know by reading some of your other interviews that one of your goals, of course, is Olympics? Do you think that you can keep this same approach if you want to go to that far?
Um, yeah, I think so. I always want to keep like lightheartedness into my sport and my life. So I'll definitely keep a more chilled approach, but I'll just, yeah, like I said, like this year, I kind of want to try and you know, take a little bit more seriously and have that little bit of competitive edge, but don't allow it to take over. So I definitely will have an element of just me being silly throughout it all, regardless of how far I'll make it. So hopefully, if it does come to that, you'll still see me smiling and giggling on a bigger stage.
This is probably also helping you during this rehab, because I know that this season you're not training because of an injury. So first tell us a little bit more about this injury, what happened, and how the rehab has been so far.
Yeah, so it started with a bit of knee pain last October, and it only happened during like specific jumps if we were taking off a high jump. So we tried to like deload and just stick to the running, and it was okay for a little while. And then I tried to do the indoor season last year, so that's January 2022 now, and I really hurt myself trying to do nationals to then qualify for the British Championships. So we put that indoor season on hold, and we carried on through rehab. But the problem that we had last year was the Commonwealth Games, which is a big deal for Welsh athletics and Wales. And obviously, I was in line to potentially qualify for that. So we kind of pushed through that injury initially, but that knee pain just wasn't going away. And we thought, you know what, we'll work through that pain. But the problem was the instability of that knee. It wasn't the pain that, you know, caused us to stop. It was, oh, this pain is telling us that knee's not right, and that knee is not working how it should. So I wasn't getting off the floor. I wasn't gaining that height or that speed or distance I needed.
But did you do any MRI to see what's going on there?
Yeah, so I did actually very recently, and actually it's confirmed what we thought it was, which is patellar tendinopathy, which is a very sticky injury. It's known as jumper's knee. It's quite frustrating. But actually, my main injury last year was illness. So I had the COVID vaccine, and I reacted really badly to it.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, which obviously I didn't even expect being a medical student. You know, I just went in thinking, you know, I need it to be on the wards and to help others. And I've not been the same since. So actually, one of my main issues last year was I had like chronic pain, and I still have it now. So we're still trying to figure out how to overcome that. So the injury is still not over.
Wow. So was that the first shot of the boost?
It was the first one.
And so that you didn't even take the other ones then? Probably.
I haven't, unfortunately. Obviously, I would have liked to have, but I haven't because of my own health, yeah.
Yeah. And for the knee, do you have to do any surgery, or can you heal just with rehab, exercise and things like that?
So the stance we have now is that it shouldn't require surgery. We checked for other things like fat pad impingement or other anatomical variances, and that's all clear. So at the moment, I am, for the next 4 months, so leading up to just after Christmas, all we're doing is loading it. All it is rehab. And if by then it's still struggling, then there is option of surgery, but that is last resort.
Do you feel progress, like comparing to where you were when you started this?
So I actually didn't find progress for a very long time. So like I said, the initial pain was in October 2021. And that pain, I would say, didn't actually improve until about 6-7 weeks ago, when I had 5 weeks off for exams and academia. So I found that rest period really just slowed my knee down, reduced that inflammation, and now I've gone back into training about last week, and so far so good. I can still feel it's not 100%, but we're just taking that time to just rehab it and just take it through all the motions again up till Christmas, and fingers crossed it'll work, but we'll have to see.
How are you dealing with that? I mean, you have a busy life as a medical student and everything, so putting the competitive training aside and not competing, then seeing your friends competing, how did you react to that? Did you take a beat on that, psychologically speaking, or you reacted normally?
No, it definitely was disheartening, especially Commonwealth Games. It was like one of my main targets for years, and to be honest, about 2 years ago, we didn't think we'd make this Commonwealth Games, and it was only because I had a really good season last season, so the season of 2021, that it kind of put me in that light of, oh, I could qualify. So to make it more lighthearted, I kind of thought, well, I wasn't even going for this Commonwealth Games. It was always 2026 and beyond, because I see myself as like a development senior athlete. I feel I get better every year. I'm still growing into my body. So I feel I see myself improving and being at my best, 25 plus years old. So that's how I sort of dealt with it, was actually this Commonwealth Games was just a bonus. And that I just had to be happy for everyone else around me. So we had another Welsh heptathlete in the Games this year, Lauryn Evans, my training partner. And I just had to focus on, that she has that opportunity and that's her time. And that kind of helped me through. And also I had exams as well, which was another reason we sort of decided not to compete. So I had quite a lot on my plate, and I just, again, tried to be positive about it. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't hard to deal with or accepting.
Yeah. Are you mid way to finish the degree, or are you still in the beginning?
So I was going into my third year, but funny enough, so we had multiple assessments this year, and I failed one of them by a couple of marks. Med school's brutal, and they've sent me back the entire year. So I'm currently in my third year of 5 now.
Okay.
So it's a bit frustrating, and I find the med school haven't been very supportive in trying to aid me with both careers. So I'm currently politically trying to improve that in the med school. But yeah, unfortunately, I've had to go back a year. But again, it's something I've got to refocus, I've got to reprioritize and just use this year. Technically, I've done that year before, and I did well in all my assessments except for one. And I have to redo them all. So in a way, it's a year for resetting. It's a year of not chilling, but, it's a little bit calmer. So I'm just, again, taking it in my stride.
It's an interesting time as well, because if you think about 2022 is probably the first full year, if we think about normal year, compared to the last 2 years with COVID. So it's like, okay, this is the year because we are going back to normal and everything, and then a lot of things happens to you because you probably were out completely in 2020, right? Because of COVID, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So Wales as well. So UK had really strict rules and lockdowns, but Wales was even worse. We couldn't go anywhere. But again, I actually used COVID to my advantage. I kind of recognised my weaknesses. So at the time, I wasn't very good at javelin. I had some core weaknesses. So I really built myself in 2020, which gave me that really good 2021 season.
But were you able to train in 2020?
Yeah, so we weren't able to train at a track, but what we did was my coach, Finn Corcoran, he created like a online platform. We did like Zoom calls, Zoom circuits. It was all online. And I was lucky enough. I've got some land at home and I was throwing javelins in my field in the back garden. And honestly, my PB improved massively that year. So I just used it to my advantage. And sometimes people make training complex. And 2020 allowed us all to go back to the start. Like, we were just doing planks, we were just doing push-ups and running. And actually, we really struggled with that. We'd find that some of us couldn't even do a plank properly. And I think, you're trying to jump as far as you can and throw far. But if you can't do those basics, then you're not a good athlete. So you actually will find that a lot of us got better after COVID. So it's interesting.
It's interesting. So, but you don't have like a home gym, right? Like with weights and everything, do you?
So I don't, but I was lucky enough that we had like this really old shed with honestly the rustiest weights in the world. And I used some of them, and I think I luckily had a hex bar, and I think I had like 3 20 kg plates. So I did utilize some weights, but like I said, in a really dusty barn. It wasn't great.
Were you able to run outside? Because I know that some places you were not even able to go outside, for a park to run and things like that.
Yeah, so there were times we weren't able to. I think there was about 6 to 8 weeks we weren't allowed to leave the house. But like I said, because I had fields, I was just trotting along my fields. And then Wales allowed everybody to exercise for half an hour a day. So I'd run to the town and back, which is about 2-3 kilometres. So that's all I did. And then what made it hard though was during the winter, everything was icy, so I couldn't even run outside at some point. So then I bought a skipping rope from Amazon and just skipped to the house. Much to my mother's annoyance, she wasn't happy with me. And the funniest thing, I really got into pull-ups over COVID, and I was using my mum's shower to do pull-ups.
Wow.
And over that year of pull-ups, I got better, but the screw got loose in the shower, and one day I fell onto the shower door and it shattered. Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
I know. My mother was so mad, but I thought, do you know what? Your child is trying to improve herself, so you shouldn't be too mad.
Yeah, no, yeah. There's a good reason behind that for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I broke a shower, so.
Broke a shower and doing pull-ups. That's unique.
Yeah.
And then 2021 came in, and you felt like you had a lot of improvements in different areas. But then in October, you start feeling this this weakness in the knee. It's interesting that you had like a whole year off that you could rest theoretically without pushing too much because there was no competition. And then the first year right after, you have this injury. Do you think it was something related to strength and condition? What do you think happened to cause this?
So I think it was a multiple factors. So obviously coming from COVID, I had 6 months of the outdoor season and I PB'd in every single event. I got so good so quick and I was really enjoying it, and we thought that's a good base. We then had like the September off. I think we had about 6 weeks off after the summer of 2021. And what happened is I think we went straight into high intensity plyometrics and bounding too quickly. So that tendon on my knee was happy. I've then, relaxed it and it's, in a good state, and I've just hit it
too fast.
Too soon. Yeah, and I also started Roaccutane then as well. So it's isotretinoin. It's like a drug for acne. So I had severe acne at the time, and that's really bad for tendons. So I think with the accumulation of high intensity loading too quickly and that medication impacting my tendons, it just wasn't happy at all.
Yeah, makes sense. No, makes sense. It's another lesson learned. Don't go too fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so currently we're doing plyometrics in the sand, and we're just doing low-grade plyometrics. So we've learned from last year, and we're taking it easier.
When you divide your training schedule, because you do strength and conditioning, you do 7 sports basically, so you have different probably work schedule for each sport. So how do you divide? You train twice a day, and then you go to school, and then you study. I mean, it's a busy day, right?
Yeah, so we train 6 days a week. Our general rule is we want to lift 3 times a week, run 3 times a week. So how that kind of pans out changes throughout the year. But usually we're lifting on the Monday, and then we run Tuesday. And we obviously do other things like core circuits, sandpit runs. We're currently doing plyometrics and bounding, but lighter than last year. And then the Wednesday, we do core and lighter weights. Thursday, we run again. Friday, we weight. So we actually don't train twice a day, except for in the summer.
At all? You never train twice a day?
We do sometimes, but that's more... So winter training now, we find that a 3 to 4 hour session in the evening, we just get everything done. So we actually train between like 5 p.m. and 8:30, 9 p.m. So we train for a very long period in the evening rather than split into 2. No. I think so unfortunately, athletics isn't a well-paid sport. So a lot of us are students or we have full-time jobs, and we find that getting the entire group together in the morning and the evening's a bit too much. So we usually just train evenings. But as the outdoor season commences, we do have double day Wednesdays and Saturdays then. Yeah.
And I was reading some of your Q&A that you put out this week on your stories, right? And there was an interesting one about how to maintain motivation. And it said discipline over motivation. So elaborate more on that.
Yeah, so you just find that motivation, is fleeting, and it changes based on your surroundings, your environment, who you're with, and how you feel at the time. And if you rely too much on motivation, then you're going to have those days you're not at your best, and you are going to be missing these essential gym sessions, which don't seem like much now, but if you add them up in a year, they're going to affect you. And especially in a sport like athletics, where everything is down to a point, and every margin matters in a race, then missing those gym sessions matter. So yeah, don't rely on motivation. Of course, motivation, if it's there, use it, but discipline is so much more important.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. But then you also said, but you maintain motivation. Then you said, find your why. So what is your why?
My why? Oh my gosh, it's quite complicated actually. My why mainly, funny enough, is I'm a plant-based athlete, so I massively believe in veganism, but not just that. I want to be an athlete who believes in something, tells everyone who they believe, like what they believe in, and then show what I can do through that. So I want to show people I can be strong, fast on plants, but it doesn't mean that I just want to make everyone vegan. I want someone to see that athlete believes in something, is standing by it, and can do well off that. So I'm now going to stand by my own values. So it's aligning my values to my sport, and then hopefully inspiring other people to do the same. So it doesn't necessarily mean that person now has to go vegan. It's what are their values? How can they apply it to sport? And for me, obviously sport's about performance, but ultimately it's about being a better person and making other people around you better. So that's what sort of inspires me, and that's my why is in my race today, can I inspire a young girl to race? Or, can I, make an improvement or speak to my patients kindly? And, it all kind of becomes one for me.
Yes.
And medicine ties into it as well. So.
And was this always your why? In other words, were you always had this mindset, or it was evolving over time?
When I was in school, like I said, I kind of told everyone in school, like, I'd love to go to the Olympics. And I always knew that I just wanted to make something of myself. But I think my why was more selfish when I was younger. I was like, I just want to do this and I want to be this. And I think, it's from the age of probably 15 up that I've just noticed, I don't know, like, I have quite a different view on the world, but I find the world quite cold, and I'm very happy-go-lucky and kind, and I feel like people tear it down all the time. Like I said, that med school now, like nobody's giving me light of day, and I was actually, funny enough, I had a meeting yesterday with a supervisor in the med school, and she basically told me off for being proactive and organised, and she said, never in my time in med school have I had somebody contact a practice to organise their placements. And I was like, well, there's a first for everything. There's not going to be change, so yeah, my why's definitely changed to over the years from a less from a selfish point of view to now a less selfish point of view, and I just want to combine all of my interests into just improving others.
That's amazing. And the other thing that also caught my attention this week was a post that you make some days after that, where basically you said so much more than a body, right? And then you explain a lot about that. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, of all people, right? Because if you wrote this, something triggered you to write that. Something really happened for you to write that. So of all people, an athlete being judged just for the look, it's completely unfair, because there is so much more beyond that. There is the discipline, there is the struggles out of the field, out of the gym, the uncertainties, the psychological game, the mental strength. There are so many other things going on.
Exactly.
Before the performance, where you actually displaying your body. So I think it's unfair when people start judging, in many athletes. There is a great documentary that was released a couple of years ago, the weight of the medal, the weight of the gold, with Michael Phelps. It was about how hard it is for athletes to cope psychologically with that
Exactly.
pressure and everything. So when you wrote that,
Mm.
not you don't have to go to details, but what really triggered you to write that?
Yeah, so obviously there were actually a couple avenues. One avenue was how athletes are always sort of judged on their appearance. So, for example, heptathletes, if you look at us, we're all different shapes and sizes, but we all compare, one another. So and so's taller than me, so and so's leaner, and we're always told like, oh, you've lost weight, or you've gained weight, or how much do you weigh? And sometimes I feel like the way we look is there's too much pressure on what we look rather than, well, what can that body do? So that was one aspect of it. A second aspect is obviously just in general how I just feel that I'm being viewed as just a body, because obviously, becoming an athlete, you have that body that's desired by people, like women and men, and I understand that. But when I feel like all I'm being met with is what I'm viewed on the surface, it's frustrating, because as you said, there's so much more to me than how someone perceives my body. Now, I recognize someone can appreciate my body in multiple ways, performance or whatnot, but let's talk about more than that,
Yep.
because everybody's so much more than that. So that's kind of where it came from. And then obviously there's some personal aspects then with relationships where I just feel in general people need to be kinder to one another and try and learn who people really are rather than what they look like.
Yeah.
So there was a couple of elements to that post.
And nowadays it adds a different dimension with social media, because with social media people definitely are judging you by the pictures, because they usually don't even read the caption at all. I mean, they like or do not like the picture.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I've seen so many friends doing different experiments, putting a picture with a text that has nothing to do with the picture, just to see if people are paying attention to what they are actually writing it.
Yeah.
But I think that's another problem nowadays, is that people are extremely judged because of social media is driving that behavior too.
Exactly. Yeah, it's such a shame. And I think my Instagram's grown quite a lot quite quickly in the last couple of months, and I have seen that judgment, and I'm seeing sort of the darker side of social media, but I'm also seeing the good, because I'm reaching out to others, I'm inspiring others, and I'm able to help others, such as using the question and answers. So it's about understanding that social media can have good and bad effects, and just trying to make the good out of them. My biggest problem is, going back to my body, I don't believe if I post a picture of my body, I understand it's open to judgment all the time, but I'm never going to change what I post because people view me in a certain light. So yeah, that's how I see social media. I'm going to keep using it. I'm going to use it to reach out to as many people as I can and explore my sport and build my platform. And if someone doesn't understand that, then they're free to leave, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, the worst thing that you can do, to be very honest, is trying to please everyone. You're never gonna do it. You're never gonna be able
Yeah.
to. So just actually be yourself, and whoever likes it, you'll continue to follow and support.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And talking about this mindset, I know that you don't get nervous and everything during competition, but leading to the competition usually comes, some moments that you doubt if you can do it, unless you are overconfident, which I don't know if is your case, but sometimes you keep doubt to yourself. How do you handle
Yeah.
that pre-competition pressure that usually happens?
Yeah, I have quite a lot of doubt, to be honest, and especially last year, going into one of the competitions, a heptathlon that allowed us to qualify or not qualify for the games. Like, I had a lot of doubt because I was thinking of my knee, I was thinking of this general pain I was undergoing, and in my opinion, just overcoming that doubt, I listen to positive music, I speak to family and friends, myself and my coach just have a good relationship in terms of managing, those thoughts. And like I said, ultimately, my view is I'm going to have these doubts, but I'm just going to do my best and I'm going to enjoy doing it. And if the result isn't what I want, then that's okay. And surely, there's a learning curve. But one of my favorite quotes is, if you don't win, you don't lose, but you learn. So that's just how I overcome those negative thoughts.
What was the biggest challenge in your career so far, as competition or any other challenge that you believe was like, this was my biggest challenge so far?
Yeah, I would say it was that heptathlon that I just discussed. So it was I think it was in June it was end of May 2022. And it was that competition. I was told I had to reach a certain mark in the heptathlon to qualify for the Commonwealth Games. I had a medical exam on the Friday before it, so the day before it, which I had to defer in the end. I was also moving house. And like I said, I was undergoing this pain. And people who haven't been in chronic pain, the amount of people that are like, what do you mean by you're in pain? And I couldn't describe it. My entire body was hurting me all the time. And it became mentally exhausting. And with the medicine, with moving houses, with, oh my gosh, this weekend I have to score one of the biggest scores of my life to reach the games, which is what I wanted to do, in all of this pain. And then that entire weekend, event after event, just didn't go well for me. The first event, the hurdles, it was okay. But cooling down and then warming up for the next event, the high jump, I was just in so much physical pain, whilst having this doubt of, am I going to be able to do it? Whilst having the pressures, it was so tough.
Yeah.
And at the end of that weekend, that's when we sort of decided, well, let's leave this year, because I didn't even enjoy it. And like I said, one of the main things for me is enjoying it, and I didn't even enjoy it because I was in so much pain. So yeah, that to me was the hardest.
And what was the biggest lesson learned from that event? Never compete under so much pain anymore?
Yeah, I think in my head before doing it, I knew that I wasn't going to compete at my best. So now, unless you enter a competition thinking, I know I'm not at my best, but I'm going to, have learning points in different areas, I don't believe there's any point of me going to a national competition not being confident and not feeling at my best or being ill. And this is funny because I did it in January 2022, actually, that competition where I re-hurt my knee. I was ill the entire week before it, and I didn't eat anything.
Wow.
What made me think I could go to the British and somehow do well? And I always have this hope in my head, but I'm learning now that you can have as much hope in the world, but let's be logical and let's learn.
Listen to your body, right? If your body is saying
Exactly.
no, sometimes it's really no, don't do it.
Yeah, my body was screaming at me all last year, and it was almost a relief when we said, let's not go. So like I said, even though the Commonwealth Games was really hard to watch, I wasn't in the physical state to go, or even mentally, and I had other things going on at home and medicine, and I just thought, no, I can't do it. So now we're just trying to create an environment where I'm physically and mentally more prepared next year. So it's all learning.
Yeah. Wow, this is competing with such a pain. It must be hard, because it must be first not only the pain but the frustration to not being able to perform the way that you want, and as you said, not having fun, which is even the worst.
Yeah, I almost became someone I didn't want to be, because like I said right at the start of this conversation, I'm that happy-go-lucky, I'm smiling, I'm encouraging other people, and I found myself swearing and not being who I want to be. And I was in so much pain, and people didn't understand me, and everyone was asking me the same questions, that I was becoming frustrated, and I thought, I'm not even being pleasant at the moment, and that's not who I want to be. So there were so many reasons, so many things that I learned from that experience going forward. But competing on pain that nobody else understands was very frustrating.
It was your first time under those conditions that you had, or did you had previous experience where you were not feeling 100%, but you did anyway?
Yeah, there have been plenty of times where I felt 100%, and I think as an athlete, you've got to go into some competitions not at your best, because you've got to have that element of managing expectations, managing your body when it's in different states. But that was the first time I went, and I sort of knew in my gut I shouldn't be there. But obviously I had such a great opportunity from that weekend that we had to try it out.
Mm-hmm. So you don't regret at all?
I don't regret it, because from that weekend, like I said, I've learned so many things about myself, about others around me, about my body. And also, I watched the Commonwealth Games knowing I went that weekend to try and qualify. Whereas if I just didn't even try, I know I'd be thinking, like I said, I've got such hope in my mind. I'd always think, what if? Whereas I didn't have that what if.
And I think that's the worst factor ever, is the
exactly.
regret of not even trying it.
Exactly. And that's actually probably one of my biggest fears, you know, when everyone says, why do you do medicine? And why do you do, you know, I also teach kids, and I'm also in the army, and I do like loads of things. And everyone's like, why do you do all of these things? And I'm like, because what if? Like, every single opportunity that is out there, just take it, because you just don't know what will come from it. And you don't know who you can change that day. And yes, it's exhausting. And yeah, maybe I'm taking too much on my plate, and that's something I'm going to have to reflect upon. But I find it hard saying no in general, because what if?
Yeah, that's a great.
I'm a bit crazy, I know.
That's a great point. I didn't know about army, so you are on army too.
Yeah, so I'm just a reservist at the moment. I'm a medic in the army, so I'm not sure if I'll make a career of it. But if I've got my foot in the door, so there's an opportunity there if I do want to, you know, continue with it or not. So
That's great. That's really a lot on your plate for sure. And what is your expectation for 2023 season?
So I've just moved closer to training, so I have more contact with my coach. Like I said, we are building up till Christmas, improving my knee and doing prehab on my shoulders and just getting my body right. And at the moment, it's feeling good, so we're just going to be patient. So for 2023, we're not sure if we're going to do the indoor season yet. If we do, that's just going to be touch and go, or just seeing how my body is, not putting any pressure. But to be honest, next season I want a heptathlon PB. I want to score over 5,500 points and maybe come close to the Welsh senior record. So I do have big goals, but my biggest goal isn't performance related. It's more managing my body, because if I manage my body next season and I'm consistently doing well, and again I find happiness in that sport and where my body is, then I think going forward in the future years I'll be better. So, but I'm obviously, athletes all the time have big goals, and I do want to improve next season.
But there is any specific tournament or that you are aiming for? I know that you don't really plan to win, you plan to get better, but there is any specific tournament next year that you are aiming for to do really good, for example?
So 2023 is quite a chill year, because obviously 2024 was Olympics, and last year was Commonwealth Games. So this year there's nothing like big going on, but I think for myself, my training group, we want to compete internationally. So we'll find some, like a European Cup or something, and we'll go out to Italy or France and compete, because we're trying to improve how we manage different environments as well, and manage the travelling and all that. So we're targeting a few international competitions. We're not sure which ones yet. And then I'd love to compete at the British Championships as well, which will be either end of June or start of July, and hopefully come top 4 or 5 in that as well. So, but again, we're not really targeting any specific competitions.
Well, it's the Paris Olympics is too close for you, but you aim, when you look for your future, there is a specific Olympics that you plan to be there?
Yeah, so I think going forward, obviously my med school will finish at 2025, and then the Commonwealth Games will be in Australia in 2026. Like, that's a given for me. Like, even in my mind now, I'm going to that. Like that's it. I'm going. So book your ticket. I'm going. So that's like the main goal, and then obviously from that we'll have to see where we are, because if we're for Olympics, you need to be scoring like over 6,000 points in the heptathlon, and to be honest, it's the toughest it's ever been to get there. And the politics in athletics, especially British athletics, isn't amazing for any performers trying to get through that barrier. So yeah, let's get 2026 commies out the way, and then we'll have to see then if it's realistic to push for Olympics 2028 then.
Well, but if you do well in 2026, then your chances will increase a lot, right?
That's what it'll be. It'll be like a 2-year goal then for Olympics. But yeah.
Well, it's very interesting how you are planning so ahead, right? We are in 2022 and you're already thinking 2026. So is that something that you always do, like a plan way ahead, having that vision and then building up year after year? Because another point about establishing goals, as an athlete, you have the short-term goals, the long-term goals. How you envision that and plan accordingly?
Yeah, I just think every athlete has to have a long-term vision. Otherwise, you don't know what you're doing that gym session for. You don't know what you're training that month for. And that vision's not clear. Whereas if you know, okay, I'm going to aim the highest I can, which in athletics is Olympics, then it allows you to build all your years. So it's like you said, it seems so far away, 2026, but it's in February 2026. And when you think about it, it'll be 2023 soon. And we'll only have a couple of seasons to refine our events, get the score we want to. We've got so many heptathlons to do and they're so tiring that actually those years go by so quickly.
Yeah, it does.
And if you know, okay, I want to be scoring this in 2026, then it helps you for all the other seasons. And it gives you, like I said, a vision for every single time you train. And every drill you do, we do silly drills, walk-in drills, which seem so pointless. But if you know why you're doing it and what your goals are, and that it's going to help you get quicker, stronger, it's going to help you throw further, then it's going to allow you to be better in each training session. So that's just how I view it.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. But again, being so young and with so many things on your plate, do you find time to just have fun and forget school and gym and athletics? You find some time to balance that as well?
Yeah, definitely. I do, but unfortunately, it makes my sleep kind of go. So that's the only thing. If I do ever find time for friends, it's very late at night, because if we finish training at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Oh, that's late. Yeah.
Exactly, and when I was living an hour away from the track, I wouldn't get home till 10. I'd then join people at a party at 10:30, and I wouldn't drink either. So I'd have like 2 hours at a party, and it's so funny because I'd tell myself, right, I've got to show my face. I'll go and chat to everyone, and then I leave. So yeah, I go to parties late and leave early, and I don't drink. But luckily, I'm nuts enough. I don't have to drink. But yeah, I definitely make sure that I keep my socials up and have fun, because that's what life's about.
Yeah, you definitely need to balance. You cannot go all in 100% because you're gonna burn out at some point, right? So you have to find that balance.
Yeah, and I think last year was probably my burnout, because I was in that physical pain and we're not sure as to why. Like I said, it was post-vaccine, but we're still not, absolutely sure what caused it. And they were saying it might be chronic fatigue syndrome. And there were a couple of things floating about. And then obviously I missed the mark in one exam by a couple of marks. So it was like a double whammy. It was like, I'm injured and I'm not going to Commonwealth Games. And I accepted that by saying, okay, I can do well academically. And I did do very well academically in all of my other assessments, but I fell short on one. And I think that kind of taught me that I was trying too much too soon, and I was holding on for hoping to go to Commonwealth Games and study medicine at the time, and it was just a bit too much. Yeah. So I think last year has taught me to slow down, and I will delegate some commitments this year, unfortunately.
No, but that's good, because again, you are in this growing moment of your life and you are finding your limits, right? Sometimes you push too hard. It's like, wait, I think that's way too much for me, right? So
exactly.
I mean, you are learning a lot about yourself and how far you can push. And last year taught you a lot, for sure. You're never gonna repeat some of those mistakes again.
Exactly. And And of course it's frustrating. And when I look back, I think, do I really have to redo an entire academic year because of 2 marks? And I told them that. I said, look at my consultant assessments. Look at all of my other assessments, all of them
that's
average.
tough. It's really tough.
With everything on my plate, I think I actually have done a good job. But unfortunately, medicine is not enough. So, yeah, we're going to have to learn from that and go forward and not give them a reason to send me back again.
Yeah. No, you can do it for sure. You've done it
Definitely.
once. You're gonna do it again, and this time it will be flawless for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it was an amazing conversation, Laurie. Thank you so much for taking the time. I think that for not keep inspiring the new generation is very important, and as you said, sharing your why and really focus on the good things, right? Don't really
Exactly.
worry too much about haters. They will always be there. It
Exactly.
should not interfere on your well-being and your personality. So keep doing the great work you do.
Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, ultimately, just be happy and do your best. And that's all life can be.
Yes, and I really hope that you are able to make to 2026. So almost 4 years from now, a little bit less than 4 years from now, we'll look back and say, oh, well, she was planning this since 2022.
Exactly. Well, I told you I'm going to be there. So,
Yeah, I love the confidence. You're gonna be there. That's it. There's
yeah,
no other way.
there is no other way. Like, no ways.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Right. All right, everyone. This is a wrap for today's episode. Thank you very much for joining and tuning in for more.